What's happening, people? And once again, welcome back to youtube.com/CubCamTV for this, another album reaction ranking. I'm very excited to get into this one. We are going to be talking today about an album that we have been reacting to, breaking down, doing loads of bits with over the past couple of weeks. And I've got to say, it's an album that I've been very, very impressed with. First time properly actually getting into the artist as well, and I've been so impressed that I have been saying to an extent that this person is now one of my favourite rappers around the globe, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. We are, of course, talking about M.I. Abega, who has recently launched a brand new album entitled The Guy. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you would have seen that we have got a lot of reactions up from this album already on the channel, and today we are going to be ranking the tracks off the project. So there we go. We've done this a few times before. As always, friends, if you're new to the channel, do make sure you are getting involved by hitting that subscribe button on the right hand side of the page. Of course, turning notifications on as well, leaving a like, leaving a comment, and all of that good stuff. I have written a ton of notes down for this one. As always, last night I listened through the album, and I listened through it again this morning, just to make sure I've got my opinions kind of set on it. And again, it may well change, but I just wanted to make sure I had the notes about each individual track that I wanted to talk about. So without further ado, we're going to bring this up on screen so you're going to be able to see exactly what we've got going on. The tracks on there are either going to be ranked into banger, solid, good, or filler. So these are the categories, and we're going to get right into this. Opening up, of course, with the biggest track of the project, I believe, and that is this one, The Guy. And I'm staying it straight from the jump. It's going right into banger. The thing I really liked about this as a recording, more than anything else, was it was unshamefully unorthodox. A really unique approach to just rap music in general. Absolutely love the video. TG Amori slapped it. Do check out our reaction to this one. Very, very smooth production style as well. Lots of different drill-esque elements, but at a slightly slower tempo. And I've got to say, the way that M.I. approaches this one makes it an absolute banger for me. Absolutely love this one. And I've got to say, I think this is a tune that a lot of people did enjoy when it landed. A lot of people enjoyed the video, and I think a lot of people will be in agreement that this one goes straight into banger for me. Coming up next then, a track that goes by the name The Hate. Now this one is an interesting one. The instrumental is stunning. The distant guitar delays are fantastic. The sweeping Reese bass lines going on down below give it a really kind of textured sense of depth. But the vocal for me on this one isn't quite as impactful as The Guy. Still very, very solid, and that is why it's going to go into solid. An interesting tune more than anything else, and already showing a level of diversity on a listenership perspective on this one so far from M.I. Again, this is a very solid album, so it's going to be interesting to see if anything actually lands in filler. Coming up next then, Bigger. This one is an absolute banger, and it's difficult to think it wouldn't be when it features the likes of Olamide and Nas. Olamide on the hook absolutely kills it. He brings everything you need to the table for a tune like this, and alongside this, the verse from Nas is pretty timeless. I think this is a very, very good Nas verse. I think it's a verse that a lot of people would absolutely dream of, and it has all of the banger ingredients. Three very well thought out vocalists all getting involved. Really good vocals from M.I. Lyricism on this one, of course, is absolutely on point as well, and it's great to see I suppose the level of respect that Nas shows for M.I. on this one, because he comes through very, very kind of stacked with heavy artillery vocal-wise, and it just shows the kind of levels that this album is actually operating at, which I really did enjoy. Right, coming up next then, we aren't going to spend too much time on each of these. Again, do let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm always keen to hear what your ranking would be. I always leave a link to the to the full ranking as well, so you can have your own version of this and send it over to me on Twitter. Again, my Twitter link is in the description down below, but you can do your own version of this via the Tier Maker website, and I'll leave a link down below. Right, coming up next then, Soft Like Tony. This one is going into good for me. The instrumental for this one feels slightly off. The sampled percussion and metallic bass sounds aren't quite intertwining as the start of the album kind of felt, especially in regards to the previous two tracks. Lord Vino's vocal is cool, but again, it feels like it's a lot less impactful than the opening three tracks. It's still very listenable, which is why it's not going into filler, but if we're comparing the tracks on this to Soft Like Tony, this is definitely the weakest point of the album so far for me. Again, you may disagree. Let me know in the comments down below. This is purely off my kind of listenership perspective. Coming up next then, The Front Door. This one featuring Duncan Mighty. This one for me is going into solid. Another legendary collaboration feature, which is a bit of a running theme on this project, to be honest with you, with Duncan providing a very slick vocal addition. The instrumental is floaty, perhaps too much so, in certain areas, which kind of keeps it away from being a banger. But to be honest, I think this one would have gone into good if it wasn't for how catchy the hook was. The hook on this is spectacular, pulls you in, and it's a very kind of unique, different approach. And that's what pushes it up for me, and that's what pushes it up into solid. It was going to go into good, but this one is going into solid for me. Alongside this, we're going to get into the next track, Crazy, featuring Aussie Grace. Now, this one, for me, would usually be my exact cup of tea. I love kind of floaty vocals and distant reverberations and things like this in sound. It's something I always absolutely love to hear. The concept of less is more and utilizing each instrument with reverberation heavily can... It can give you a very pleasing backdrop, but for me, this one actually doesn't take off as it should do. There's no, like, big crescendo moment, which I feel if you're using that kind of spacey element, you need to kind of have. This one goes into good, primarily for the vocal compatibility, because I've got to say the vocals actually work very cleanly next to each other. So as you can see, everything so far is quite evenly spread. And again, moving forward, we're going to get into a track which I know a lot of people absolutely adore. We only put the video up for this one yesterday. I absolutely love this tune, and that is the Love Song featuring One Day Cole. Now, this one's going into banger, and I'll tell you for why. It's definitely an interesting one. The idea of having a non-corny approach to love song writing is difficult, and MI absolutely kills it. And then on top of that, you've got one of the best vocals out there for this type of tune, which is, of course, One Day Cole. It couldn't be anything less than a solid, if we're being realistic, when you put these elements together. But the unique rhythmic approach and instrumental design put it into the banger section for me. Again, I love the way the different instrumentation all stacks up. I love the subtlety of the bass line, the kind of combination of those shaker lines, which really do give it a sense of excitement. Everything about this one is just exciting, and that's why it does go into the banger section. I don't think it's stronger than Bigger or stronger than The Guy, but I would say it's definitely stronger than The Hate, so that's why it sits where it does. Coming up next then, The Inside, featuring Fino and The Cavemen. Now, this one may surprise a few people. This one is going to go into the top of good. Soft Light needs to be at the bottom, so that's where we're going to go to there. Now, the reason for me that this one is going into the top of good is because obviously when you bring the Cavemen in, you're going to get a unique texture, you're going to get a unique instrumental design, and you can hear that Cavemen influence right from the jump, and it is always refreshing, especially with both MI and Fino's vocals blessing something like this, which is super stripped back and actually understanding the assignment and getting it right. But again, I feel on an album like this, which has big moments, I feel you need a moment to be kind of getting into that solid bracket. So this is why it's going into good for me. I feel this, as an instrumental, it works. It's just missing kind of like a moment. It's missing like a kind of wow factor element that just happens, whether it be a saxophone line, whether it be a kind of vocal harmony. For me, it just didn't happen as it should have done. It's still solid to the point where I want to listen to it, but it doesn't have the element that makes it solid. So for me, that's why it goes into good. Again, guys, let me know your thoughts on these, because these are my personal listening kind of experiences of this album. These may well change over time. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm really keen for people to have a go at these lists themselves as well and send them over to me on Twitter. Next up then, we're going to get into Daddy featuring Chills. This one is very fun. Cool use of keys, alternating string lines, bouncy instrumental as well. Definitely one that will grow on me. I definitely think it's a difficult one to kind of put above the front door. I definitely think it's a good tune though, so I'm going to put this one into the top of good. Again, lacking that kind of moment, and that's the only criticism I have of this album in a lot of cases, is the tunes. When the moments happen, they're fantastic, but some of the tracks just don't have those moments, and when you have fantastic moments, you need to kind of replicate that to keep the whole thing rolling. Again, nothing here is filler, and everything does tie into the album being as solid as it is, and I think by the end of this, we may well end up with the average being a solid, which is a good thing to have, but there we go. Coming up next then, next is Soldier. This one features Tomi Owo. Again, this one's going straight into solid. I'll probably put it just above that. And you know what? I'm going to move this around because I think that the Hate should be down there. Yeah, that's where I'm going to put them. Again, beautiful vocal displays. Excellent storytelling from MI, as always. Addressing... Again, I want to say delicate issues surrounding suicide and having the strength to kind of carry on through those difficult scenarios. He has a fantastic ability to read the room within his lyricism, and this is another good example of that in motion. Again, great tune. Definitely one of the more somber moments of the album, but I think on a project like this, you do need to kind of switch up the elements, and the best thing about this album, I feel, is the variation. Whether you're kind of covering softer Afrobeats textures, more harder rap styles, or even more sort of singer-songwriter, indie sort of style things like this, I think it's a good way of kind of combining all of those elements really nicely. Right, coming up next then, we do have Oil featuring Benson. Again, great tune. Really, really good tune. I am going to put this into solid. Now, the reason I'm putting it into solid is primarily due to Benson's swagger and vocal creativity. When you then mix this up with the ability that MI has to kind of essentially sew everything in a track together with his lyricism, you're going to end up with a solid tune. And I think this is one that was released as part of the... This was one of the ones that did come out with the album. It wasn't one of the pre-releases, and it works so well. I think these two are a collaboration I'd like to see again. I think the reason this isn't going into banger for me is because I think these two as a collaborative pair can actually offer more. And I think there is going to be a lot that we can see happen when it comes to this. So I think as a collaboration, it's definitely one I want to see happen again. And then finally, we have More Life featuring Ice Prince and Jesse Jags. This was a legendary status link-up, although it feels slightly clunky in its transitions. The overall feel is achieved for sure. I'm going to put this one into good. And I need to rearrange these slightly. I think that's probably the order I would go in. Again, this is entirely down to my interpretation of this album, and I would love to hear your thoughts, but that's how we are going to round this off. The Guy, for me, is probably the strongest track on the album. Bigger, second, and then the Love Song with One Day Cole in third. Again, I really like the front door with Duncan Mighty. I think it's just lacking that little bit of kind of star finesse to get it up into the banger section. And again, the good section there featuring Daddy, featuring Chills. Crazy featuring Aussie Grace, of course. The Inside with Fino and the Cavemen. More Life featuring Ice Prince and Jesse Jags. And Soft Like Tony featuring Lord Vino. For me, I think this is a good representation of how this album actually sounds. There aren't any filler tracks on there. Actually, it averages out just enough so everything is just about hitting solid. And I think that's a good example of where this album is, realistically, for me. I think it's a very solid body of work. It's a great representation of what MI can do when he's given the time, resources, and energy. And as a 12-track project, if you have any tracks that are hitting filler at that point, it's probably not great. So, yeah, very interesting indeed. Very, very interesting indeed. I'm excited to see how you guys react to this and how you react to the album as a whole. Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree with the listing, what you would change. I want to hear all of your thoughts, so do let me know. And as always, friends, if you are new to the channel, make sure you are getting involved by hitting that subscribe button on the right-hand side of the page, of course, turning notifications on, leaving a like, leaving a comment, and all of that good stuff. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.
Sounding so good right now. But they're sounding a bright and town.
Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel right now, Corp Cam TV. Stay locked.